support group. We welcome family members, seekers, and students of the NDE. We are honored by the choice you have made to join us. My name is Tina Angeli. I am a near-death experiencer, and I'm also one of the facilitators of this group. I wish to express my gratitude to Dr. Bethany Silver for her expertise in technology and all the extra help she provides and effort in making our online support group possible. Upcoming speakers, we are booked until December. We have no speaker. Well, of course, we had no speaker for May, as you know. July speaker will be Mindy Speranza from Florida. Our August speaker is Andrea from Canada. Now, thank you, Felice DiMartino, for accepting our invitation to speak this evening. To allow individuals enough time to ask the speakers questions, there will be a one question limit per attendee until everyone with questions has had an opportunity to be heard. The meeting will conclude promptly at 8:30. Anyone wishing to continue to share with others attendees may remain. We ask that all attendees mute their audio, and when Felice concludes her sharing, she will be able to answer questions. Thank you, Felice. Please begin.
Thank you. Since Bethany, since you're such a tech whiz, can you guide me as to how to turn off my notifications if they pop up? Because I don't want them to make a sound. You know what I mean?
So do you mean notifications that you have through email?
Well, notifications that I have through text on my computer. You know what? Or I mean, it's just going to ding. Okay. So that being said, I had a little prep for this evening, and then everything disappeared off of my desktop, like off of my home screen. Trust and surrender. Like what? I mean, so I was on the phone with Apple for a few hours today, and they guided me to turn that off. So I mean, back on. So anyway, I don't know if there's a quick way to, if anyone knows how to turn off getting the notification so they don't ding. Okay. All right. Oh, wait, Krista, were you saying something? Oh, your mic is on.
Okay, so you're getting notifications on your computer? Okay, so do you have a Mac?
Yep.
I believe if you go into settings.
Sorry, everyone. I just didn't, I didn't even remember that he had me turn it back on. So I go into settings, and then what?
Yeah, if you go into settings, there is, you should see notifications and sound. Let's see. So if you go into notifications and then you scroll down, where are the notifications coming from? Messages?
It's texts, yeah.
Text. Okay, text messages. Okay, click on the messages.
Oh, you know what? It says turn on do not disturb. So I'm just going to turn on do not disturb.
Okay.
There we go. Good. Okay. We'll see what happens. That should work. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Okay. So I thought that what we could do to all arrive here together after a day and after everyone coming from wherever you're coming from is settle in together. So if we could just all kind of settle into wherever we're sitting and close our eyes or relax them gently, maybe 1/8 of the way open, whatever feels comfortable for you. And taking a few deep breaths together, we could breathe in through our nose to a count of 4 and out to a count of 6. Or if that's too much, in for a count of 3 and out to a count of 5. Maybe if you can count on your own, we'll take a few rounds of this. And then wherever you are in this next cycle, then resuming the natural rhythm of breath. And we can open our eyes, fluttering them open. And, you know, the breath is always kind of a pathway I have found, and studies have shown, to really ride the breath back into the center of that place that connects us with our higher self, with our superconscious, with our divine connection and knowing. So simply remembering to breathe, you know, it's not something that we always pay attention to, and remembering that we always have that tool to return back to ourselves. So this is my first presentation, like my first time talking since the fall, and I was feeling a little nervous. Actually, I did talk a few months ago, but it was funny. And I know that all I really need to do is just share my experience and what happened. And I do have some slides to share. So some of you here have heard my story and heard about my NDE, and some people haven't. And the more it's integrated and the more work, kind of that inner work I do, the more it feels like there are pops of remembering, and there are pops of these epiphanies and pops of aha moments that are like, oh, right, that, and knowing how to even give language to something that is beyond language. So I know many of us with NDEs, that's a common occurrence that we encounter. So there's a little bit about, I guess I'll start with the NDE and what happened, because there were events leading up to my NDE, and then there's the what happened, and then there are the after effects, and then there's the current state of things. And what happened for me was, there was a bunch of things that happened that did lead up, which I could go into after maybe that, but in a nutshell, propelled me into what I call resiliency boot camp. Major life stressors, right? My partner had an affair. I became an empty nester. My house had a fire. All my jewelry got stolen. There was a big theft before there was a fire. I had surgery on my leg. I'm sure there was a few more things that happened in there. I took a leave of absence from work. So in every way, my identity of how I identified myself was blasted right open. And this all happened in a year and a half, all of those major events. And I had this calling. I had been teaching, guiding small children in a Montessori school. I was a Montessori school teacher for 25 years. And I had started to consult, and I felt like, with all that I had just been through, if my experiences could help someone, kind of as I was going through it, I knew if my experiences could help someone, it took the edge off of that. Like, it was for something bigger than myself. It was to have some kind of impact, perhaps. And it really helped me to get through it. Yet I wasn't taking action on any of it. So it was either that or expand what I was doing in the education system. And I had just gotten back on my feet, kind of with my renewed sense of self and feeling strong again. And also that all happened in 2012, where there was a lot of major shifts. And for people who are into astrology or different wisdom traditions, the Mayan calendar, there's a lot of changes in 2012. And at the time, I wasn't registering that. Up until that time, I had been on a spiritual journey more consciously, and had varied experiences since my late teens, early 20s, in different countries with different elders and different traditions and different experiences. that had all informed this kind of spiritual seeking and searching for something that I knew was bigger than the life that I had been living. Super supportive family, super held in that, yet that always felt like there was something more and something missing. So fast forward, I get back on my feet. It's now 2015. I'm at work one day. I leave work at school, at the Montessori school, and I walked to the corner. My car was parked at a lot that the school rents that was down the street from the school. So I walked to the corner. It was about 4:30, 4:45, and I had the light. It was a busy intersection, and the light, I waited for the cars to pass. I mean, to stop going, so I had the right of way. I waited for the light to give me the right of way, and all the cars had stopped. So I crossed the street. There was a crosswalk that, that's another story. It wasn't up to code, but there was a crosswalk, and about 3/4 of the way across, a big pickup truck, a Dodge Ram pickup truck, came up from behind me and sped up. Apparently, I found this out after, sped up to avoid the oncoming car to make a left-hand turn. And I didn't really hear it. It was drizzly, and there's noise. It's a busy intersection. There's a gas station. So she came up from behind me and made a left-hand turn and hit the right side of my body, going about 30 plus miles an hour. And as soon as she hit me, and this is a memory that came to me after, my head whipped around and I caught a glimpse of the woman, of eyes. I didn't know it was a woman at the time, but I caught a glimpse of her eyes. And the next thing I knew, I was above my body, looking down at the scene. I saw and heard, yet not with my physical eyes, which was impossible because of my body was laying on the right side, about 30 feet, 2.5 car lanes from the crosswalk where I was hit. And I saw the scene. It was like a spotlight, just what was going on below. There was peripheral vision everywhere, yet my focus was on what was going on below. And I saw there were 3 people. I heard the woman who hit me in hysterics saying that she had called 911. There was a man and there was a woman, and the man directed the other woman to go to the crosswalk, one of the crosswalks diagonally that was where the woman had come from, to direct traffic. And there was a sort of assessing in that state. At first there was a jolt of disorientation. And there was an assessment of what was going on of some kind. And there was there was a wondering, like, is this a safe place? Am I going back to that body? And there was an assessing of all of that. That's the only way that a word I can have for that. And once I understood that I could go back, I was in another place entirely. It was like I was lifting up my consciousness. It's kind of like when you have a tea kettle almost, and the steam rises and the water evaporates. That's how it felt. It felt like this life force and this energy that was me, that was moving up into another place, and the scene below faded, and I was in complete illuminated blackness. It was the blackest expanse yet there was like an illumination about it. And there was pure nothingness. And there was pure lightness. And it was simply being. And it felt as if I was floating in like a cocoon of sorts. And it was warm. And there was contentment. There was no fear. There was no worry. There was simply being. And a wondering emerged that I equate with thought. Of it seemed like it was a waiting place, like this emergence happened from that place, and it felt as though it was a waiting place, and that there were kind of others. I had this sense, I didn't see it, but my periphery sensed it and felt it, that there were also others there in that same state, and that this was kind of a for me in that state, a wondering came that it was like a waiting place, and there was a wondering that emerged of is this it? You know, is this it? And now I'm here. And as soon as the wondering came as what we say a thought, there was a shooting out into this huge effulgent light, and there was like a presence. I don't want to say, you know, I don't know if it was a light being or an angel. There was a presence, and it was pure, complete, crystalline, white, radiant brilliance of light, brilliance. And the presence, it was other than my own, yet connected with a part of me. And I knew it was there to help me and to be supportive and to answer any questions I had and to share information with me. And it felt as though I could touch my forehead to, it's how I equate it is, if you imagine touching your forehead to another person's forehead, and you instantly have a download and know everything about that person and everything about their life and all of their experience and all of the things that go along with it, their experiences, like the imprints of the feelings and of the history, but not in a dense form. It was just like a knowing of the lessons. That's how it felt. This presence was there to share information with me and show me and answer any wonderings that I had. And at some point, and there was a lot that happened in that transmission. And at some point, there was a sense of urgency. A sense of urgency started to arise. There was a separating out from that. And there was a sense, and this presence was still there with me. And there was a sense of urgency that started to arise. And I remember assuring the presence and myself that I would remember all that I had learned and all the information that had been imparted to me in that state. And I asked, there was a sense of urgency, and it was like an urgency to get back. And before I get back, I asked, who are you? Who is this? And I heard, I am you. And there was a hearing. I heard, it's time to live big. Like when you go back, it's time to live big. And the next thing I knew, I was down above my body and I was hovering above my body. And I heard yelping sounds from this physical form that is me. And the closer I got in, and I was kind of partway in and partway out, and I could feel like this density. It felt like being squished or squeezed into something, into form. And even though I was existing outside and inside, there was a sense of density and weightedness and being kind of squeezed like a genie in a bottle. And I heard again the sirens, and I remember saying, "Oh, those sirens are for me." Yet I wasn't feeling in my feeling. It was what I've come to hear referred to now as bilocation, being in and out, existing outside and inside, and the whole ambulance ride was like that. So I was watching this man at my head. My head was bleeding. They didn't know where it was coming from. I was watching this man at my head holding my head, talking to me. And there was someone else next to me. And I heard myself mumbling, but I was also watching everything from above. And at some point, I was being taken out of the ambulance into bright lights and organized chaos of a trauma unit. It was a level 3 trauma unit. And that's when I had more conscious awareness of what was going on. And that is what happened. And then there's a lot of after effects about that. And I kept on continuing to receive messages from this presence that I had communed with when I was out of my body. This presence, when I was back, said, all is truly well. There was a wondering, when I was back in my body, I had fractured my pelvis, my sacrum. There was some damage and internal bleeding. There were staples in my head. My whole right side of my body was sprained. I had a traumatic brain injury. So there was a lot going on, and I kept hearing all is truly well. And it gave such peace. And does anyone have any questions? I know you like to save questions for after, so I just feel like I want to pause there. Because what happened is a lot of times when I share and I close my eyes, I go right there to that moment, and it's what I've taken away and what I've integrated from the experience is being in the both end, right? We are temporarily in human bodies, and there was a lot of I remember I was in therapies for a long time, to walk again, to speech therapies. I mean, I was in a lot of therapies for a bunch of years to get back to full functioning physically and with a TBI. And I remember a therapist once said to me, you really should see a trauma therapist. And I was like, I feel like I just had this totally blissful experience. And I went to a somatic experience therapist to help to heal my body and the trauma held inside. And I completely understood what it meant. Like, we could have these blissful, expanded states of consciousness and union with divinity, and having a near-death experience, and the bliss of all that, and the trauma to the body, right? So that's been a process of releasing that. And for me, what was really activated was this clairaudience. So I'm able to now hear, my clairaudience was turned up very high, so I can hear sounds that are, like first of all, I could hear a mouse sneeze like down the block, right? And also just hearing a lot of information. And that's how I receive a lot of my information. And for me, what happened was when I got back, at some point, I took all these classes. I was like Akashic Records and angel intuitive readings and spiritually intuitive chakra healing work and all of this to kind of make sense and to take all of this expanse to be able to channel it and funnel it and serve as a conduit. And what was shared with me, basically there's 3 things that were shared with me, and this is what I want to use my screen for. Okay. So I'm going to do this, right? And then I'm going to entire screen.
No, you want to click on the
Chrome tab.
window.
Window.
Choose a window.
Perfect.
And then once you see the window that you want, you click on
Great.
it. Perfect.
Okay. So in my experience, this is how it was shared with me to I needed to have a way to talk about all the things that were shown to me. And when I heard it's time to live big, there was a lot of uploads and downloads that I was given about all of these, like all that is encompassed in why we don't live big. What does live big even mean, right? And there's a lot of work that I've been doing and I've been guiding others to do in this realm of living big and living from your heart and living from your true essence and living from the voice of our soul. And then, and why we don't, right? Like what society tells us and what labels we give to ourselves and all of these things that keep us playing small. And then the experience of being so much bigger than our bodies, right? And everything is frequency and vibration and energy, everything. And it's so amazing to see quantum physics and neuroscience and, you know, near-death experiencers and all of these and ancient teachings, ancient hermetic teachings and ancient mystery schools and wisdom teachings and spiritual traditions coming together to say the same thing, that we are indeed so much bigger than our bodies and addressing all of these things. And then the all is truly well. And what was shown to me through experience, through learning about deeper layers of forgiveness was all of this, right? And the moment when I was out and the moment of wondering happened of, is this it? Like, is this where I am now? And immediately I was met with the answer to that because there was no density in the way. Like I asked a question, I'm saying it was a question. It was really like energy that had built up, and it was immediately met with the answer. Yet for me, that's the seed of the law of attraction, right? It was like a question, a wondering, yet there was no density between that and receiving the answer to the question kind of thing. And then faith and boundaries are a big one, you know, being in connection. This kind of points me to being in the both and, being both spiritual and human, temporarily human, because there's no bypassing. There's no, you know, there's a term toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing, and it's healthy to have boundaries sometimes. And that's okay, you know, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and love. And I had another slide that here. So my experience, and again, I just put this together because my original one was lost in the cloud somewhere, but this is my experience of where near-death experiencers go in up here, right? Like these are the chakras, and everyone's familiar with the 7 chakras. And or not everyone, but a lot of people are familiar. If you're not familiar, there are 7 chakras, energy centers in the body that correlate to different organs and different glandular systems and different feeling states and different states of being. There's also additional chakras. There's the earth chakra, which is below our feet, which connects us to the ground, literally with gravity, with an electromagnetic force, keeping us grounded on the earth. And as we go up these chakras, there's the crown chakra at the top of our head. And then above that, there are several chakras. And for near-death experiencers, tapping into this realm, right? And my interest lately and the guidance has been from the beings of light that have been in communication with me, that comprise galactic, angelic, ascended masters, and ancient Egyptian codes, is that there are ways to guide people to have these experiences without the trauma that accompanies a near-death experience often. And so that's the work that I've been really interested in doing lately, and the guidance on accessing and being in this way of light. And through guided meditations and sound frequencies and different brainwave states and visualization, there are ways that we can access these higher states of being. I also thought it was really interesting to relate it to David Hawkins. I don't know if anyone's familiar with David Hawkins, has a book called Power versus Force. And he was a doctor and a psychiatrist and a lecturer and a spiritual researcher and a medical researcher. And he had, down here, these lower frequency states, feeling states and emotional states and states of being, it's very constrictive, right? And the higher up we go, the more expansive we go. And these relate to the chakras, which I thought super interesting. Here we go, right? So I don't want to get too in the weeds with this because that would be very easy to do. There's a lot more slides about that and about what each chakra is and what glandular system they are. Here, wait, let me just see what glandular system they accompany and that they impact. It's just really a fascinating experience to have this near-death experience, and to also see it represented through different studies and quantum physics and sacred geometry. I mean, there's so much. And what's happening for me lately is there's a lot of guidance. A lot of guidance comes to me during dream time and during sleep. And also I've been really interested in the Monroe Institute and hemisync technology, which is binaural beats in different ears. And actually Scott Taylor, who I believe is emceeing the IANDS conference. He's become a very dear mentor of mine, and I've just moderated a course where he guides people. He has a program called NDE meditations. So he'll guide people to experience similar states of consciousness and of awareness and of connection with divinity that NDEers experience. And it's been a really fascinating journey. So I'm super grateful for that. So a lot of messages continue to come about guiding people. We're on this massive evolution of consciousness, and the world is really waking up to higher truths and to these more attuned ways of being in connection. And it was given to me the way of light, and light in this case and love is interchangeable. The way of light is the way of love, and the way of love is the way of light. So that's a little bit. I mean, I can keep going, but I don't know if anyone has questions right now.
Okay. Sharon?
Yes. How'd you know it was me and not Matt?
Because I see your face.
Hello, how are you? It's funny you started mentioning the dreaming because I was going to ask you about the dreaming because I just got this funny feeling that you got a lot of dreams. I don't know why, but that's what I got. And when you're dreaming, is it the light that you see? Like, is it the light that you communicate with when you're dreaming? Because some people can communicate and it's as if you're in another realm and the people who have gone on are around you. Some people can dream, and I get that. Do you see light?
I see how it comes for me is it's like a in communion with my guides. Like I get all of this information and I end up writing in the dark. Like I don't wake up. So I know now to get up and I write. And sometimes I'm scribbling over and over, the lines because the light's not on.
Right.
It feels that it's what I'm getting is it's writing on, and again, I'm going to give words to it as best as I can. It's these crystalline light codes. It's crystalline light that's infused in the messages. The messages do come from that frequency of this crystalline, Christed, and I'm a Jewish woman saying, I mean, I grew up Jewish. I'm just saying like Christed, like crystalline, like white diamond, brightest light. That's how the messages ride on. And that, by the way, is encoded in our very DNA. Like that crystalline light is in our DNA and it's in our cellular memory. And it's waking up now. And the more we could release the density that we hold in ourselves and all the traumas and all of the inherited traumas and all the things that are ours from other lifetimes or this lifetime or our grandparents or their parents or the collective, the more we release all that, the more that light comes on board in our cells. It's already there. It's like it fills more of us. And then we ascend into these higher frequencies. So that was a long answer to your
That's
question.
okay. That's a good answer.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good
Thanks.
answer. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jack, hold on. First is is Matthew wanting to ask a question? Sharon?
No, actually, he's not. He's right here off
okay.
camera.
All right. So that was
Okay.
wrong. Okay, Jack, you're next, please.
Yes, Felice, that was a fabulous, in-depth description of your NDE. Really profound. Thank you for sharing that. I have a minor question. When you finally crossed over to the other side and encountered a sense of beings, could you describe those beings in terms of this side of the event?
Can I describe those? It felt to me, there was an effulgence of, there was a presence other than my own. And it was energy. It was light. It was pure light energy. So for me, it didn't look like what we see pictures of. I don't necessarily have a description or an outline. Does that make sense? It was a presence and it was light. It was light. It was a higher frequency presence which is interesting because it felt like it was singular. Yet when I receive messages from these guides that are at these crystalline energies, it's a frequency and it's like a group of them. It's more plural. I don't mean them, it's more plural rather than this was clearly a guide that was sent for me. Like we all have a guide or a guardian angel or a guide. I haven't named it like this. All I know is it was a presence other than my own that was there for me, that's always with me. And we each have that presence there for us. So for me, it came in the form of this light. I guess if I had to say anything, it felt like it was tall and light. Tall and light. I guess it would be like how we see an angelic presence, sort of. I know that's not a straight answer. It's just,
I know
how I
it's a
experienced
difficult.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
So,
how I
but
experienced it.
you have described more of a sense of the being there, but not visually clear that you can describe it.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw the being. I saw the being. I sensed the being and I saw the being, but it wasn't like in our rational minds, we want to say like, oh, here's you and here's you and here's you. And, you know, it wasn't as formed as that. It was, I mean, there was some sort of shape to it, yet it was pure light, pure effulgent light.
Okay, thank you
How
very
it
much.
looked. Yeah.
Thank you
Doing
very
the best I can to describe it, you know, my experience with words. I mean, that's how I experienced it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, I raised my hand, and that makes perfect sense because when I saw those 9 entities, when I had my last near-death experience, they wanted me to see how many there were there, and so therefore they wore brown capes.
Mm-hmm.
And I counted them as being 9, and they told me much later that they were the Lords of Karma. But that is why, otherwise it would be just this one big blob of white light.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Tina, is that I found that it definitely like it was large, like it was. But then again, like when you're in that state, it's all relative. You know, it was a large white light, bright, the most crystalline, again, that frequency of pure light, and it was singular for me.
Yeah.
And yes, so thank you, Tina, for understanding, because it's
Yes.
yeah.
You have to be there in order to understand. Thank you. You did a great job explaining. Okay, so there was another hand up. Ashley?
Hi, hold on. Hi, this is my first meeting here. That was lovely. It's great to be around people that are like-minded. My question is there any books that really stood out to you that you read and were like, oh, this really helped you grow or explain, you know, your situation better?
Do you mean in terms of, there are a lot of books that I read that totally resonate for me, that I'm like, yes, that, because they ignite that. It's like they not even ignite, they are speaking right into your remembering and your activation, that activating that you had, right?
If you had recommendations, that'd be fantastic. I love reading some of these books.
I've been, I'll just share with, I mean, I have a whole list of books. I've been really into reading Lars Muehl. I don't know if anyone knows Lars Muehl, LarsMuhl. I've been reading Lars Muehl. I've been reading a lot about Hermeticism and the Hermetic principles, and about the Essenes, and Mary Magdalene. I mean, I've just been reading all of these because that it's been speaking to me lately. And I mean, and as far as I've read a bunch of books that other near-death experiencers have written, and there's something in everyone's that resonates as yes, that. And it's really been interesting to hear how different people speak to the experience, So I can get a list together, but like I said, I really enjoy Lars Mule. I don't know who, if anyone else has ideas. I know Leslie raised her hand. I don't know if she has an idea.
Yes, Leslie. Hello.
Oh, I don't have an idea, but I had a question.
Okay. You know what? Also, maybe if anyone has some books they want to, Living with Joy by Sanaya. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of, Ashley, did you hear that one? Maybe we can write them in the chat if anyone has
Oh yeah, in the comments, that would be great.
comments. Yeah.
Okay, Leslie, do you still have a question?
Yes, I do. I was wondering if Felice could share her experience when she started to share her NDE with loved ones.
Yeah. Right away, I was kind of, the whole thing, I remember, when did I share it with loved one? I remember being in rehab, because after the hospital, I went to rehab. And I remember something popped up this was in 2015. And I remember I didn't really have words for what I had just experienced. And it took a while for me to be fully in my body. I don't know that I still am fully in my body, to be quite honest. I mean, it's like, it's so easy to go out. It's like, oh, all right, stay in, ground. I would say it was pretty soon after. I was trying to give words to it. Again, having a traumatic brain injury, it was like, well, it was very hard for me to tell the difference between where I ended and where someone else existed. Like, my energy was so big and I was so disoriented. So I remember being in rehab and seeing Anita Mirjani's name pop up on like a little screen. This was, again, before she was interviewed with Dr. Oz, and she started explaining about her near-death experience. And I was like, that's what happened, right? She was sharing something that landed for me to explain. And I know my mom's on here. Maybe she can type in the comments when I started to share. I want to say maybe a month and a half. But again, I was only able to speak to it a little bit. I didn't have all the language yet. I was still figuring it out, but it was pretty soon after. And I have a very supportive family. And also, it's like before I came back, there wasn't like a directive, like you have to go share, but there was a knowing, like, you are going back, you are to be this, it's like incumbent upon, I felt this sense of responsibility to share this information, not necessarily put on myself, but it was almost a directive, like to come back and share this information, but not like from some being on a throne pointing with a staff pointing a finger saying, you have to go back and share. It was just a knowing that this information, and now the time is right. So Leslie, I would say it was pretty soon after. As soon as I had some words, but I didn't talk about it publicly till, I don't know, a few years ago in full.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Greg?
Hi, this is Adam.
Hi,
This is
Adam.
Braden.
Hi, Brayden.
Hey, just curious, this isn't my question, but I saw you from Amherst. Was it the Amherst Montessori you're working at?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I live in Holyoke, so
Yeah.
local. I'm interested. I'm trying to ask a question. I'm interested in what you're saying about dreams. I heard that dreams are messages. Sometimes dreams are also just a physical unwinding. But really, what fascinates me, if someone you know, living or passed on, appears in your dream, is that an actual communication, or could that be just symbolism, or either or? What's your thought?
I mean, I can share what my experience is and what my, my experience is my experience. There's my experience, and then there's what I'm inclined to, my sense is that sometimes it's visceral. Like when you.
Right, please mute yourself.
Ah.
Okay, go ahead.
When you're dreaming and there's a loved one who's passed and it's visceral, like you could just about reach out and touch them, right? That to me feels like a visit, that energy of a visit. And if it's something that, and then there's different senses. Like for me, I feel like during our sleep, we work things out. We're connected, we astral travel. There's a part of us that leaves. Can meet with another person's, that essence of another person, to work out whatever karma, whatever energy, that whatever there is to work out, clean up, that's happening. I believe that's really happening. I do think that there is an element of dreams, and I don't know enough about it. I don't know who this is, M. Davis. I don't, my sense is there is some also subconscious, unconscious working things through in some dreams as well. I don't know enough about it. I just know what I've experienced. I've experienced loved ones visiting, and I have experienced traveling out, and it's like working in the dream time, when the conscious mind is at rest, when the ego mind is offline, that analytical mind is offline. So I hope that's helpful.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions, please? Okay, Bethany first, and then Sharon. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you so much, Felice. I just found your description so compelling. It's fascinating. I'm all about near-death experience integration, and how to integrate best after your near-death experience. And I'm just wondering, what are some strategies? Maybe you can share 2 or 3 strategies that you've used to help balance and center yourself.
Whew. For me, having a body-based expressive, like whether it be yoga, whether it be walking in nature, is always super healing. Something that is nourishing to the soul and gets you in your body and gets moving. That for me has been really grounding and centering and soothing, and like it's safe to be here in a body. And it's calming. It calms my nervous system. So I would say that. I would say practices. Writing, having a journal, writing thoughts, any mode of expression is a creative outlet, painting, drawing, whatever it is, to allow energy to flow through. And I would also say that for my integration, doing my somatic experiencing with this somatic experience psychologist has been life-changing for me. Because it's helped my body discharge actually what's interesting is my somatic experience woman who I see is also, she was on the board of the Monroe Institute. So somehow the two are connected, right? Like the nervous system, the wiring, the the thread that a lot of people experience, like a cord that ascends up into the upper realms. I'm thinking what else? Dance, movement, breath work, meditation. Having a safe outlet to talk about it, to talk about what's happening, you know, and also the grace of being in the both end. And I do want to share something after, when everyone's done having questions. Is that helpful, Bethany?
That's perfect, Felice. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Okay, so is it you, Sharon, or is it Matthew that have a question?
Oh, no, we heard her say MD. I didn't know if she was talking about Matthew or not. She said something about there's an MD.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if you had anything about the dreams. Greg had a question about dreaming, and I didn't know if you
Oh,
knew.
if I had
Yeah, anything to. Yeah,
No, I think you described it perfectly because I feel like my description, and I've told this to Tina, I feel like lately I've gotten much more sensitive, and it is like you're in a realm. You are doing just as normal. You don't even realize you're there until you are there, and you are just doing things like you normal. Like I'm sitting here talking to you on the phone. You don't even realize that you're in another realm with these other, I'm going to call them people. For me, they're people, because I haven't had that crystalline yet. But
Mhm.
I feel like you can reach out and touch them. And you don't even realize it until you awaken hours later, or sometimes it's instant. That's all I have to add to that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's like that crystalline energy is in us, and it's now. You know, if you look at the ripples, if you look at how sunlight ripples on the water, you can pick it up. It's like it activates what's encoded in our cellular memory. Is that crystalline light? It's what we're made of. And that's part of, you know, there's a lot of talk about ascension, and, you know, people on this growing spiritual path, is that it allows us to release density, you know, and to move into higher states of awareness and transcendent states, and walk around and be human too. Yeah. So can I just share something else that I wanted to say? Was that, you know, at the time of the accident, I was in this process of, I had mentioned I was with someone and they had an affair, and I really learned a lot about forgiveness, and is that you can acknowledge, we can always pay attention, right? It's like we can always pay attention to the light in someone else's heart, and the potential to be that light and be that love and be that divinity, whether someone else is being it or not. You can acknowledge it's there, and you can pay attention to who someone's being, right? And have boundaries. We're in a both end kind of situation. So it's like acknowledging the light in someone. And if it's harmful to you in any way, or if a person is harmful to you, or if a situation is harmful to you, without judgment, or without making wrong, or without, you know, admonishing or anything, you can simply acknowledge it and have a boundary. And it's not healthy and safe for you, but that doesn't mean that they're not full of light. It's just everyone's on their own path and of evolving and returning home into the remembering of who we truly are.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there's nothing to fear. That's another thing. You know, there's nothing to fear in in the transition. I mean, we're here and then we leave our breathing form and we're in this beautiful, expansive, unconditionally loving, supportive, nourishing, inviting, welcoming place, you know, and state of being.
Yeah. I had that with my brother-in-law when I was about, how old was I? About 24. He had passed on as he was transitioning. I was, in a realm as he was transitioning. I was actually laying down what I thought was, anyone else would say I was sleeping. And he came to me, and I've described it because I can't describe it any other way. It looks like, you know how sheer curtains are? Extremely sheer curtains. And he had you couldn't say that was him, but you could tell the form.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You're so young, and my sister's so young, and you have the child. The child is only 7. You're 28 years old." And I somehow said to him, "Don't you want to be with them? Don't you?" And he said to me, "Sharon, in your state of being, I cannot make you comprehend what it is like on the other side." And to me, it just did not make sense because he was so young, and he had my sister, and my sister had a child prior, and she had one with him, and and I said, no, I was kind of like, but don't you want to come back here? And he said he could not. That's what he said. He just could not make me. He could not express to me in words where I could comprehend what it was like on the other side. So, yeah. Yeah, his name was Andre. Yeah.
Andre, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Andre. You know, it's like the human mind. Our egos and our minds. We want to make sense of everything, right? It's like if you take a pie, there's what we know, which is like a finger. There's what we don't know, which is like 2 fingers, and then there's everything else is what we don't know that we don't know, right? Like,
right.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Laura has her hand up. Laura.
Hi. I do hospice work. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And I can tell you that there's always someone to come and greet you and help you to cross over, because I see people right at their transition point, reaching a hand up, calling out a name, seeing someone in the curtains. So I know for a fact that someone always comes to greet you, and you're never alone when you cross over. And when my own mother was in hospice, she was deathly afraid of death, and she kept having these dreams, and they weren't really dreams now. I understand that they were visitations, and she would tell me about them. And the first one was 3 angels that came to get her ready. They brushed her hair and they put flowers in her hair and they dressed her in a white dress. And she was so disappointed that they didn't take her with them that she was crying when she woke up. And then the next day she would have a dream that she met John F. Kennedy. She met him, and what a nice person he was. And it was things like that. And I later learned from a medium friend of mine that she was being prepared for that final trip so that she wouldn't be afraid.
that's really beautiful, Laura. Thank you for sharing. So something that we didn't have time to share was that I've had 2 shared death experiences. One with my grandmother from the other side as she was transitioning, but it was on the other side, and my grandfather was present to go greet her. That's another session, but there was a sense of this angelic presence, and my grandfather was there reaching down, and the voice said, "Get up now." I was in the room with her, and I woke up and she was taking her last breaths. And then when my father passed a year and a half ago, that was before my near-death experience with my grandmother. And when my father passed, he was looking at the corner. you know, the pointing, the mumbling, but not audible, like just, and then he would jolt back in his body. And then as the day went on and he got closer, he would almost reach, his whole hand went up in the corner. And I would say, Dad, it's okay. They're there for you. Like he would look and look at all of us. And so it's like from one end, from the other side, having the experience of them reaching down, and then on this side, having the experience of the reaching up. It felt like the circle was complete. And then when he transitioned, you know, that's the other thing, right? It's like when he transitioned and knowing that they could hear everything. And so we all gathered around him and held hands. And I said, Daddy, I know you can hear us. I know you could see us. We're going to be okay. From the memory of what it's like to be there, right? Yet it was distinctly him. So I know you can see us. We know you can hear us. We're all going to be okay. You know, soul goes off to soul school. You know, you'll do whatever you do. If and when you want to come back, we're here. So there's not this like, we're waiting for you. You have to, like, if and when you want to come back, we're here to receive you. You know, it was really beautiful. Thank you, Laura, for sharing that and sparking that share in whatever way it's helpful for someone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments? Okay, Bethany.
Yeah, I have a question, but I don't know if Laura's friend has a question too. But I wondered, Felice, you said you had a very supportive family. And so I'm wondering how sharing your experience with them went when you have a very supportive family.
They're really patient. You know, I mean, my mom's on here right now. Like she's heard this story however many times. And I'm talking about like things that are not, it's just, it's opening to, how is it? That's just a good question because I don't really know any different. I'm like, oh, bye, Krista Marie. Love, 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 love. Heart hugs.
Thank you. Thank you, Krista Marie. Bye.
How is it when I have a supportive family? Can you be more specific, Bethany, please?
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, you know, I've read a lot of accounts of people whose families just weren't accepting of their experience, and there were concerns about, you know, people being locked up in asylums because they're treated like they're crazy. So I'm wondering, like, how did you approach sharing with your family? And it sounds like they're predisposed to being open to what you did have to share. So I'm just wondering, like, even though you know your family's accepting and willing to lean in and hear you, I just wondered if you had any reservations at all about sharing your experience.
Oh, absolutely. Number one, I'll just do a disclaimer that I kind of prepped my parents, number one, because when I was like, you know, 20 and off and living on ashrams and traveling with the Grateful Dead and going to South America and going in caves with Mayan elders, they were like, what has happened? You know, so I kind of prepped them to be, I'm on a path here. And I wonder if my mom is laughing right now. And for me, I am definitely hesitant and very self-conscious and aware. And even though I know that all is well and that it's time to live big, I'm still human and I'm hesitant to go out and talk about and channel in public and channel language that comes through me that I mean, and be seen, fully seen, right? I mean, because I had an experience when I was younger and I did all that stuff that my friends were like, what happened to Felice? She went off the deep end, you know? So I definitely come up against blocks about sharing certain aspects of my experience. And I think having communities like this is really helpful to know that kind of how other people respond has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with where they are in their listening and their own understanding. And that's okay. It's not a higher, lower, bad, good thing. It's just being on your path. And that goes to living life fully, because the thing about a near-death experience is that as much as it teaches us about not fearing death and transition, it also teaches us about not fearing life and living big and living fully, you know? And that's what I want to take, like living fully while we're here, you know? So I'm working up against that all the time. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Is it Laura or TJ and then Toby?
It's TJ.
TJ.
Hi,
Thank you so very much. I'm just wondering, I've the last several months now, I've been seeing 3 different kinds of manifestations, is what I call them. One is, actually I should say 4. Sometimes it's just a feeling, a message. I speak a couple languages. Sometimes they're bilingual or trilingual, but they're audio. Other times I see figures that are very, very real. I see them as real as Laura is sitting next to me. Other times I see them and they are like holograms, sounded like something that you were describing of seeing. And then there's another one where there's a lady from India in a beautiful orange sari, and she always comes to me in India, in Mumbai, in front of some sort of a government office, and she comes down the stairs. She doesn't touch the stairs. She keeps her hand about 3 or 4 inches above this, above that. And then we have a conversation, and then sometimes she'll give me advice. Sometimes we'll have an argument. Sometimes she will correct me, or sometimes I don't look for her. She shows up and warns me or gives me advice. And the latest thing that's happened for me a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting in my rocking chair watching the television. I fell asleep. I woke up and I saw a hologram of myself on the other side of the table, absolutely as clear as I'm looking at you right now. And then a few days later, I was just walking from one room to another, and I could see myself very, very clearly in the room I was passing by. And I just wonder if anybody else has had this, and what I'm stymied. I know that it happens, but I don't know why or how, or if this is unique to am I one of the chosen ones for this, Mishigas? Hello.
First of all, I want to say that I know that there's a light on behind you, but you also have this huge light shining around you. And
You do.
I would say thank you. I mean, what a gift, what a blessing, and what a blessing that you're able to see with your insight. You're seeing from your insight and sensing, and what a gift. Yes, that's, they show up to give us guidance, to give us, and that you're able to see, it's like seeing beneath the veil, beyond the veils. It's like the filters when they're removed. You're so tapped in. What a gift. Truly.
TJ, your veil is getting thinner because you are more trusting now. That's all.
Thank you. Well, you started it, madam, so you're responsible. No, I just wonder, because you were describing things that I've seen in different ways, and I'm trying to write about it, and it's very difficult, because unless you've done it, you don't know the vocabulary or the thought patterns.
Yeah.
But it seems to me I'm trying to write about it, and it's very, very, very difficult because I'm also an artist, and I'm trying to describe what I'm seeing or what I have seen. And it's frustrating. As you say, it's very, very, very difficult. But for me, I just want to say thank you for letting me come to this, and be reminded, because I haven't gone to a meeting since COVID started, how lucky we are that we have each other to talk about it. Because I seriously drank for a long time, because I thought these things I was seeing was crazy. And if I drank enough, I could drown them and get rid of them. It's much more interesting now that I accept them.
Very good.
But thank you so
I'm
much.
proud of you, TJ.
Thank you.
Toby, are you still have a question?
Well, I don't have a question, and I don't know how to put, I can't get my face on here, but that's all right. I'm Felice's mom. And I have a couple of things to say. When she first had the accident, it took a while for her to start sharing. I don't think she probably doesn't realize that, because she had so many physical issues that she was recovering physically. And I think she'll agree with me. It took her a while, because it's like she didn't want to identify as being this person. But then I think, Felice, tell me if I'm wrong, but then she finally realized it was incumbent upon her to share this experience with us. Which leads me to another, and as far as sharing, I don't remember who asked the question about her being able to share this with her family. I mean, there was a lot of eye rolling when she first started sharing. Her sister is kind of like, oh yeah, here she goes again, would roll her eyes, when she would tell the story, etc. But what I wanted to also tell all of you, and she mentioned when her father passed, my husband, where she's coming from, it was so helpful. And I think somebody mentioned that they were a hospice worker. It was so helpful with her insights when he was passing. And I'm just like a very concrete kind of person. She did not get all of this from me, that's for sure. But for all of you who have had this experience, you share with each other. I don't know how the group can share it with the wider community. I think it is so important for the average person out there who has not had these experiences to hear this. And I don't think that they do. I don't think they're privy to this information and these experiences, because there's so much fear surrounding either one's own death or a loved one's death. They're just so afraid, not knowing what's out there. And I just think it's really important. I don't know how you folks as a group can do that, but I just think it's tremendously important, like I said, for the general public to be privy to what has been discussed and talked about here. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Well, thank you, Toby. I have to say that some of us have written books. I did a few years ago, and it was very difficult because the energy that was experienced for me, it was difficult to find words, and it took me 10 years to write the book, which I did. Also, another thing too, every time someone wants to interview me, I will always accept, because I know that it means that somebody out there needs to hear my message.
Exactly.
And also the group is doing, we're Bethany, you, Jim, and Diana are doing the 12 steps. What is that noise? We're doing you're doing the 12 steps for NDEers in a book format, so that's good.
Yeah, we're really excited about that work, because people who've had these experiences really need support and love. Like we all need support and love, and support and love from one another, but also from their family members, just to kind of regain some balance and some sense of normal. Although it does take on average about 7 years before someone is able to begin to find that balance and find that peace. That's what the research says. But the first 2 years are very, very challenging. With you feel like an air traffic controller at LAX. You've got all kinds of new things you're experiencing, and you're trying to balance that with the normal world that you were living in just a short time ago.
Yeah, really, this is Jim. It really does, I think, answer a need, because it initially starts with everyone sharing their near-death experiences, right? But at some point you say, so what's next? You know, what comes after that? How do you come to grips with it? How do you cope with it? And what does that mean in terms of, well, what does it mean in terms of what it means? You know, right? You know, it's like, obviously you had this experience for a reason, and it wasn't just to share the story and that's it. It wasn't to have workshops and tell people how to talk to dead people and that's it. It has a huge part to do with your spiritual evolution. Now, was it random, or was it the most natural step in your personal evolution? And in the fact that it seems like maybe 10% of the people in the world have had a near-death experience, I think that's a very significant statistic worth looking at. And there is a bigger question in terms of, what does that mean? What does that mean for where our world is right now and what we need right now? And so I think that what we're doing is a small but helpful step in pointing to the answer to that question.
Okay, so let's see. We're definitely gone over, but that's okay. Anyone that wishes to continue the conversation, please remain. And Felice, thank you for a wonderful presentation. Bethany will send the video and also place it on our website. Wishing you all peace and love throughout the summer season. Thank you.
Thank you.